Making a physical campus abroad is a very big step. So we call ourselves the ITM Zanzibar family. The sense of community is really very important for us. Out of the 3,000 PhD scholars you have on campus, you have 1,000 of them being women.
Hi, my name is Amrit. We've heard that IIT Madras is the best place to build. So we've come down to the Sudan Shankar Innovation Hub. We want to meet some people. These are builders. We want to talk to them about their work and also ask them what makes IIT Madras the best place to build. Hello and welcome to the Best Place to Build podcast. Today I'm sitting with Professor Preeti. Professor Preeti is the founding director of the IIT Madras Zanzibar campus. She's also the first woman director of any IIT campus. Before this, she was a chemical engineering professor at IIT Madras and then before that at IIT Bombay. Welcome to the podcast, Professor.
Thank you so much, Amritash. Pleasure to be here.
I also want to tell you that we took 3 months to schedule this because, of course, you're shuttling between campuses and today you're in Chennai. Professor, you're the founding director of this new IIT campus outside India. And the first question that comes to mind is, what does it take to start a new IIT? Can you break it down into steps for us?
So I think we can write a book about this, and we probably should. It's first of all, the initiation comes from the governments. Although as an IIT, as IIT Madras, we are autonomous, but we are still supported by the government. And lot of this kind of activity that we do outside the country does need the blessing of the government of India. And I think as, Office of Global Engagement in IIT Madras, we've been sort of treading a lot of new ground already in this theme of internationalization. And we've done ton of things that are very new, very different in the realm of internationalization. But this is a big step. Making a physical campus abroad is a very big step for any institution, but particularly for an institution like an IIT, which has a lot of 50, 60 years of brand that is built. You go in a new region, will you enjoy the type of, autonomy, the enablement, just the recognition that you have in India, and how important is that to think about all these things. So you wanted me to break it down into steps. I think the first is for the two governments, wherever we are going, to have a very good, strong, possibly a strategic kind of bilateral relationship. That is very important. Nothing would happen without that. And the second would be that, and of course, IIT Madras always raises its hand first for all these things, want to do this, want to pick up on this challenge and go over there. And you have to set up everything from scratch, right? Every chair, every blackboard, every single student, faculty that is their staff member, etc. So first, of course, some agreements between the government involving IIT Madras and what we need, what we imagine for something like this. Good academic being set up in terms of what are the programs that we are going to offer, what is the curriculum going to look like, what is the student selection process going to be like, and what is the market for these students, where are they going to come from, how are we going to ensure that that aligns with the type of student we're looking for and the program that we're looking at. And then the big deal about faculty. Students also, of course, is very difficult, but you can find students who want the IIT Madras experience even in Zanzibar. But then the faculty who will teach the IIT Madras courses. So setting up that, I think, is definitely one of the top 3 or 4 steps. Building the physical campus, making sure that it is commensurate with where IIT Madras is today, and we can do the type of classes we want, have the administrative faculty experiences, student experiences that is deserved of an IIT Madras student. That is the fourth one. And the rest of it is all lots of everyday details for running this institution successfully, making sure that there is a long-term focus, but also a short-term handling of details focuses, man.
Yeah. I want to go into detail on some of these things. You said first of all, can I just comment that the way you're saying it, it feels like this will take 5 years, but it's actually taken like what, 1.5 years to set up since the agreement?
So even less than that, Amritash. So we made a visit to Zanzibar, about five of us professors from here, in February of 2023. Then we did a lot of paperwork around agreements and things like that subsequently. In July of 2023, we signed the MOU, which is a tripartite MOU between the governments of India, government of Zanzibar, and IIT Madras. Okay. This was in front of the president of Zanzibar and our external affairs minister. Both of them were present when we signed the MOU. Immediately opened applications. 24th October 2023, first day of classes.
Oh, wow.
So it's really shortened timelines, and you know, even I sometimes can't believe it that we managed to put all these things together, student selection, curriculum, get faculty sorted out, make sure the campus is ready. We also have hostels, so students are from day one living in the hostels, dining, everything in this short period of time. So I don't know, I think we were blessed, we were lucky, but also lots of people across all of these came together to do this so quickly.
It's amazing. Just to dive in a bit on the curriculum side, so what are the courses that are being offered?
So we have a Bachelor of Science, 4 year in Data Science and AI. That's what we started with. We have a 2 year MTech Data Science AI. We started in 2023 with both of these. In 2024, we introduced an MTech in Ocean Structures because we are in Zanzibar Island, and that's also something that is a popular course of study of late. And this year, we'll introduce possibly a couple more disciplines as well.
Do you know which disciplines? Can you share with us?
Yeah, most likely, although it's not yet out there, we are going to have a BS, Bachelor of Science in Chemical/Process Engineering for this academic year. And we'll open out applications for this shortly. We're doing some checks and balances on this.
In deciding these courses, I guess you'll have to look at what Zanzibar needs.
Yeah.
And I guess Zanzibar, it's an autonomous region, part of the Tanzania, the country of Tanzania. Is that right?
Correct. That's correct. So Zanzibar is an island. Actually, it's an archipelago. It's a group of islands, and they are part of the United Republic of Tanzania. So in terms of the country, it is Tanzania, and Zanzibar is a part of it, although it is a autonomous region as well. There are some things that are shared between mainland Tanzania, as they call it, and island Zanzibar, and some that are separated. But the campus is an international one. So it's not only what Zanzibar needs, but what sort of the region, definitely the East Africa region, possibly the continent of Africa needs, is what we are looking at, if not the world.
Understood. Actually, can you just delve into that? When you say it's an international campus, what does that mean?
Yeah, it's an international campus. Mainly means that applications are welcomed from students of all nationalities from wherever they are, and likewise for faculty. And of course, that's the direction all of us are going towards here in our Chennai campus. We are welcoming so many more students from other geographies and also faculty. But over there in Zanzibar, from the get-go, we said this is what we are.
Okay.
Already we have representation from handful of African countries, Zambia, Kenya, Tanzania, and so on. But we also have students coming from India. and from the Middle East as well. So geographically, it's a little convenient for these regions.
Right.
But going forward, we expect that it's going to be this kind of melting pot where really smart people from across the world come. And, for some parts of the world, it may be closer than Chennai. And so, there's a.
Fair enough. And I also feel like when you think of I'm going to a place,
Yeah.
it's like I'm going to this island country where there's an institute of learning. I learn something, come back. It's like a very voyage and return kind of
Yeah.
story. Ma'am, can I ask? So, in terms of internationalization, when we talk of the IIT Madras main campus, I think there may be 1% international students, or maybe a little more than 1% international students. So, in India, when we say international, that number is actually quite low. Of course, in Europe, what happens is because people come from other countries of Europe, it's the same continent but different countries. So internationalization could mean
Yeah.
like somebody from an international country could literally be coming 30 kilometers just across the border. So they are truly like 50% of students are from outside their country. So what is that kind of percentage in IIT Madras Zanzibar?
So the ITM Zanzibar about 50% in that sense of the word international. So we keep sort of sitting around and saying, what is international? Is it non-Zanzibari? Because physically we are located in Zanzibar slash Tanzania. So should we count that? That will be more than 50%. Should we count non-Indians? Because we are an Indian Institute of Technology. That would be around 50%. Of course, we are small. Right now, we're 105 students in all and about 10 to 12 faculty in all. So we have one Kenyan national who's a faculty member with us, assistant professor. Rest at this moment are Indian, including us, who are going on deputation from here. But that's going to change. Students already, we have a handful of students from soccer obsessed students from Zambia. And then we have a Kenyan student as well. And from both, there are two big islands of Zanzibar in the archipelago. So the main one, Unguja, we have a bunch of students. Another one, Pemba, also we have a bunch of students. Mainland Tanzania, a couple of cities from there also we have students. And we expect more countries of Africa to be represented and possibly even other Asian countries. We also have a Nepali student in our program. So maybe somebody from Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka who's willing to travel to Zanzibar also we will have.
Nice. I guess you get to learn a lot from each other, and there's like a sort of a melting pot kind of atmosphere. And it's 100 students right now. I guess it's going to grow, but it'll also feel like a very small community, which is very well knit.
Yeah, so we call ourselves the ITM Zanzibar family. And the sense of community is really very important for us. From the first day, that's what we said. We do everything together, all the activities. Over here, this campus has become so large, I think, that, the undergrads are on their own sort of agenda, and then the PhD scholars and
Yeah.
faculty and staff are simply not involved in several of the things that the young people are doing. In Zanzibar, we are there everywhere. We went on a cycling trip, like a whole pile of us together, faculty and staff and drivers and students, and mostly undergraduate, but a handful of postgraduate students also. So we got into the bus, loaded up cycles, and we went, and things like that.
Yeah,
we
it's
do
possible.
Yeah, we do a lot of them together mindfully also on purpose because we want. I think it's very critical to build that sense of community into the DNA of an institution in this day and age. That is, I think, very important.
That's amazing. I'm going back at my time at IIT Madras, and we had there were 120 students in my class.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember all of their names. And if I meet them again, maybe I'll recognize like 10% or 15% of them. So that's how distant you become in a large campus.
Yeah, exactly.
I also want to uh, the selfish student perspective here is that because it's so small and close knit, you get a lot of access to these professors.
Yeah.
Which in IIT Madras, it's not even possible. Like professors are busy all the time, and you don't get to meet them on a bus, and definitely not cycling with them unless you're in their research group.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, you're very right. So we have a big dining hall in the campus. By the way, we are in a transit campus facility, which it's a completely built up place. And Professor Liji Philip, who was dean planning at that time, and she's still the professor in charge infrastructure for our Zanzibar campus, representing us. She and her team had given specifications of what this transit facility should look like, so that it can bear the IIT Madras stamp. One of those things is this dining hall, and it's beautiful. It's 100 plus capacity, almost little bit getting too full over there now, but we all sit there and eat. All the profs are there, I am there, and the students are there, and you come in and go out. When Professor Raghu visits, he eats in the mess also along with the students. So you're right, the access that the students in Zanzibar have to all of us
Right.
is much, much more than you can get here.
100%. Professor Raghu is so busy here. So you have to wait for an appointment. And I remember trying to meet him once, and it's just 3-4 weeks.
Yeah.
Of course, he's also traveling. Professor, so can you explain to me what the vibe on campus? I know you've said it a bit, but let's just like put it all together.
Yeah. So it's an island, right? And all islands have a chill vibe. So that obviously seeps in. Of course, IIT Madras is very intense, but it's a good balance of that Zanzibari chill vibe and our own, academic rigor. Let's focus on this. And of course, these are students of IIT Madras. So you know that one thread is this entrepreneurship and innovativeness of creativity of students. That's an important thread that's already kicked off over there, which I'm so happy to see. And you sort of hope that you're putting in the input parameters to drive that. But it was really gratifying to see our students are in all the hackathons possible, that whatever they can access either online or in the city, they're over there. So they're doing these things. We don't yet have all the engineering represented, but this kind of activity is soon going to come there also, I think. But overall, definitely I would say that, as I was saying before, that closeness is also still there because we're still very small. Pretty much everybody knows everybody's name. I know all the 105 students' names for sure, and I think most of the faculty also know it. I don't think it's very intrusive that we are all in each other's businesses like that. Because it's this space is very nice. I can share you some photos. It's sort of quite nicely splayed out in terms of the classrooms, the hostel, the dining and the administrative sections and so on. But it's just it's just really, I think you have to see it to really
Okay,
get
I had your
into it.
pictures and I'll show it, but let me just try to mirror what you're saying. You're saying it's a small campus where everybody knows each other.
Yeah.
So there's like a friendly family kind of vibe. There's the academic rigor of IIT Madras, which carries through. And
Completely.
of course, between IITs, also IIT Madras is considered to be a more academically rigorous. And then there is the sort of like the island vibe,
Yeah.
which across the world, you know that an island vibe is like a more relaxed,
Yeah.
seafaring kind of vibe.
Yeah. And the innovative
Oh,
student
yeah, right.
angle.
Correct.
Which was, when I was a student here, it wasn't so much all of these, makers, activity, lab type activities, tinkering, let's do our own thing, let's set up our own product, company, app, that
Yeah.
sort of thing. But it's very much a part of a average IIT Madras student aspiration today
Yeah.
in Chennai. And it is in Zanzibar also.
That one thing of all the 4 things you said, that one thing is probably the hardest to get going, right? You can bring in exciting students and give them an academic environment, but to nurture a spirit of inquiry, innovation is quite hard.
Yeah. So we did this event, and of course, it's been on our mind that it is a small campus, but it is an IIT Madras campus, right? So if there is a set of growth directions for this campus, it should be the same for that one also. We don't want to sit there and just hand out degrees. Not that that is easy to do. but it's simply not enough aspirationally for an IIT Madras as an institution. So
And also, like, if you're just handing out degrees, why IIT Madras? Why not some other institute?
yeah, and yeah, exactly. So we are already stretched thin in terms of all the things that we are involved in. So we could have chosen some other paths for this, or some other institution could have been there. So we are very conscious of that. We're just about a year into this whole project, so to speak. We said, let's see, to your point about what is the mindset of the student. Is that, are we inculcating, or are they naturally inclined in the same way that our Chennai campus students are? So we called it the Student Showcase event, and we titled it The Power of Data, because these are all data science to our students essentially, apart from the handful of ocean structures. And whatever we do, I mean, today, whatever curriculum you have, even if it's a chem-eng curriculum, cross-cutting into it, data science, machine learning, AI is very important. So anyway, so we organized this. We said, let's give it a shot. Let's see how it goes. 35 plus students were given we opened it out to everybody. 35 plus students chose to present. 14 of them, maybe 13, were women out of these 35. 3 minutes. We said, you have 3 minutes, and we brought a bike on, and we said at the end of 2 minutes and 50 seconds, we're going to ring this really annoying thing. So you get off the stage, and we got an audience from our network over there and ourselves and so on. They have a nice auditorium. So we let the students loose on this. It was so awesome. The creative ideas that they have, they're still fleshing out there. These are first year undergrads.
Yeah, they're 18-year-olds,
Yeah.
19-year-olds.
The first semester, third semester undergrads, and maybe a first semester MTech student was there in that. The ideas they gave, and there was this one student, I was so impressed with her. She's Tanzanian. She said that I want to use online sort of edtech kind of opportunities to make sure that people with learning disabilities are properly included into classroom experiences. So I'm going to build that out. And there was one on tourism, because tourism is a big deal for Zanzibar. So many of the students talk about how we can improve the tourist experience using, apps and data and stuff like that. From the audience, we had people from corporate, ministry, academia in the region and all that. One person said that this is exactly what my company is looking for one of the ideas. When you're ready, you come to me. I will fund you. Let's build this product. So it was phenomenal to see it. We were so impressed.
That's really cool. You spoke about the pictures, so you've given me some pictures. Let's go over them. Maybe you can just explain to me what these pictures are.
So in our campus, language is another important aspect that
Right.
includes or excludes people.
And you're an international campus, so there may be like a lot of languages.
Yes, in my I taught a first year undergrad class this past month, at least 10 languages. Because there's students from Zambia speak, and then Arabic, and the local language is Swahili. Of course, Indians 3-4 languages among the Indians. So this we have it in 4 languages. That the Welcome to IIT Madras Zanzibar campus line in 4 languages. This is the Hindi version, and these are our women students all dressed up for a Diwali event that we did. So we equally doing the local festivals and so on, and Indian ones also. So I think some of the girls are Indian and some are from Zanzibar, and they have such close friendships already. So I really like this photo. And you see the flag also.
Yeah, on the
both the
left, yeah.
flags. This is the Tanzanian, that's the Indian flag represent.
Let me go to the next picture.
Yeah, so this is a beautiful shot of our campus. One thing about Zanzibar that doesn't get enough mention is the blueness of their blue sky, especially when contrasted with the ocean, is really lovely. This was on inauguration day when the president of Zanzibar was in the campus. It was one massive event. It was, crazy in November 2023. Karibu is Swahili for welcome.
Okay.
And on this thing, you have lots of languages. I mean, you'll find Hindi and Tamil and everything. It's a long shot of our campus.
This is the transit campus that you're talking about.
Yeah, it's about 4.5 acres. So this is these are all classrooms on this side, administrative offices on this side, and you go through here to get to the hostel side. It's not visible.
Nice.
So this is our soccer crazy boys. They're just nuts about soccer.
Okay.
And they play all the time on this in the quadrangle of the hostel. They play soccer. This was when we had a visit from a local school. Children from a local school came to visit us to see how is this college? Is this something that I should join, etc. So this was last year, and this is our team in our
You must be, there must be a lot of outreach happening to local schools and a lot of, I guess, any new institution, right?
Yeah.
It's not about Zanzibar or IIT, but any new institution has to very quickly integrate very deeply with its local ecosystem.
But especially the school community. That's something that, this year I think I'm good about it. But last year it was like I've never interacted with schools so much as I have in Zanzibar. I visited, I don't know, I met at least 500 school children last year. Never done that in India. And I made these little pens and took it from here. It says IITM Zanzibar, and they love it. They just love having these pens in their hands. But we do a lot of outreach with students. So this is after a running event. We said that share your thoughts after your run. How do you feel? We ran from this campus to our 200-acre permanent campus land, which is 3 kilometers away. So we did that, and we came back and we signed what our thoughts were. And some of them claimed their first and their second and stuff like that. Just for fun, just for.
Okay, so this is the same campus from the front.
Yeah, it's a campus, and one of those days where the light is particularly good, I think.
I can see what you mean. The I guess also because it's a campus that's off the main continent,
Yeah.
the skies will be really clear.
Population of Zanzibar is like 1.8 million or so, so it's small. Pollution is low, not zero, but low.
Yeah.
So I think that
1.8 million will be Belachari to Tovigaruru put together.
Exactly. Like 1/10 Chennai.
Yeah, it's such a good blue.
Yeah, so this is, we all live, faculty, all of us live in a gated community, 5 kilometers from the campus. And these are villas and little flats that we rent. And that's right by the ocean. We share an ocean, right? Indian
Yeah,
Ocean.
yeah. So the campus is what, 5 kilometers from the ocean?
No, campus is 1.5, 2 kilometers from a very good beach, actually. So on the way from our transit to our permanent campus, all along is beach. In fact, our permanent campus, it's a very big space, of course, 200 acres. One end of it is a beach. It's a thin island.
Right.
Across, it's maybe 60 kilometers. That's all. So you'll find the ocean everywhere. Ocean is a very sort of integral part of anything Zanzibar.
That's so cool. I'm just thinking that IIT Madras here from the main gate to the nearest ocean
Yeah.
or the nearest beach is about maybe 5 kilometers.
3 to 5, yeah, 5
So
kilometers.
see,
Yeah.
that's another thing that's been retained.
Yeah, and it's the same water body. That's what I don't know why, like very geekily, that's something I really like.
Hey, it's not the same water body. This is the Bay of Bengal.
Emotion. Oh,
This is the Bay of Bengal.
okay. Overall, in terms of the
Yeah, fine. Fair enough.
because there are a lot of Indian diasporic Indians who are settled in Zanzibar
it?
region. Yeah, mainly from Gujarat.
Okay.
But and this is centuries ago. The
Like a trading
seafarer. Seafaring trading community that has gone by ship across to the island and settled over there. There is a lot of tumultuous history to the island, but if you sort of get past all of that, there's a large Indian origin community
Right.
in that.
Very interesting. Ma'am, you sent me this picture of this lizard.
Yeah, this
You want
is
to talk
some double-colored lizard. Of course, Zanzibar is also very close to the game parks, right? Lions and
Yeah,
giraffe. And
yeah.
Serengeti is in Tanzania. There's one more place called Gorongoro, which is a crater also in Tanzania. It's just a flight away from Zanzibar. It's just remarkably beautiful. The natural beauty that you've seen on TV is just in front of your face.
It feels like the way you're describing it, it feels like living in a National Geographic documentary.
It does for many, many times it feels like that. And some of my colleagues that come, we don't have as much time, but some of my colleagues that come from here, for example, there's a team of civil engineering faculty that come over there. They've come twice so far, and they do short-term programs, which are really superbly received. They're over the moon when they Google and find out more about these props and their academic credentials. They just go nuts. But the good thing these guys do, Professor Gettu and Professor Ashwin Malingam, the people like that, they also do a little bit of sightseeing, whatever they.
I understand. Yeah.
And it's just, you should see the photos they have. It's just crazy.
It's like you're going for a course, but the holiday got thrown in.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and it doesn't take much.
Yeah.
You do 3, 4. In fact, they did a week-long course, and the weekend they had a little bit of opportunity to look around.
Nice.
And you shouldn't miss it. It's part of the experience. So this lizard I like because it's naturally two-toned. Done so, and with such brilliant colors. And this is right by our where we live, our flats.
Nice. And this picture is. I
this
can't
is
recognize
the
that. You tell
running.
me.
Yeah, no, this is our small group of runners. Some students, some faculty. Actually, this is Professor Suresh. He used to be Deputy Director IIT Bombay. He's joined us as Vice President in Zanzibar on for a couple of years. He'll be with us. You'll see a cold mix of Indian students and these are our Zanzibari students. This is Professor Ram Krishna from Electrical, from here, deputed from here. This is a student of mine, and you can any cube. By the way, he said that his name is Abdallah. And I asked him, do you know the Rubik's Cube? He said, yeah, I know it, but you can't easily get it in Zanzibar, is what he said. So this time when I went back, I took a whole bunch of cubes, the 5, the regular 3 one also, but also the twisty one, the triangle pyramid one. Within minutes, this is a 4x4, by the way, that he's sorry. Within minutes, he does everything. And he's either, if you hear the audio, he's describing what he's doing and say, ma'am, I'll teach you, don't worry, it's very simple. So I really love how sort of inherently bright some of the students are, and it's something that we cherish a lot.
I also think that sometimes, the energy that, like, I'm thinking, because I come from the startup world, and there's a lot of like nervous, unhinged energy at the beginning of something, right?
Yeah.
Like the first 100 employees or first 1,000 employees of a startup, they're totally different from the next 5,000. And I guess that's same about universities.
So I think that's where cutting in the island Zanzibar mindset has probably been good for us, because it could be very stressful if we didn't have that foil to our that initial nervous energy. I think things are going to take how much time they're going to take, right? You can't push it beyond a certain point. And yeah, we go with a lot of chest thumping about we are IIT Madras, but frankly, if you go to any part of Africa, no, you don't even have to go rural, urban Africa, you can't assume that they know. Actually, you can fairly assume that they don't know what an IIT is, what an
Right.
IIT Madras is. Madras, what is that? And then we also have this Madras Chennai, we're on the coast, that sort of thing. So I think it has been. There is, of course, lot of nervous energy, and don't get me wrong, it's extremely challenging. There are frustrations every day obviously, like in a startup. When we are over there, when we're especially trying to remote do some of the activities like I am doing right now.
Yeah, we actually take a lot of things here for granted in Chennai.
Yeah.
Like even simple things like water, electricity, internet.
Yeah.
is something that's abundant in India,
Yeah.
not true across. I don't know how it is in Zanzibar, but I get what you're saying. Like you have to think of every small detail and
Yeah, no, and some of these, when I come back here, I realize how much I took these things for granted. Support, some of the support I took for granted over here, you can't over there. Internet is not a problem for us. We've solved it in the campus for sure. In fact, when the school students come to visit us, we tell them 100% anywhere you go, there's Wi-Fi. And that is, of course, the most exciting thing for them, that they don't have to worry about that. And they're really excited by that. But internet is still, also it's an island. So you have to move the cables underground. It's a little more expensive than it is in India for sure. India, we've, I think, done remarkably well in these respects.
I mean, we spent 10 years digging our roads and putting the cables underground.
Yeah, exactly.
Ma'am, when we talk of admissions to IIT Madras in India,
Yeah.
and when we go to schools, or I do some of that effort on behalf of IIT Madras. So one of the biggest conversations we have with people are about placements and jobs. And is that the same there, or is it different? Or like do parents and students come and ask you when they're 17-year-old, what job will I get?
So to some extent, yeah. But I think the nature of our test is also a little bit different. It's 5 parts to it: physics, chemistry, math, mental ability, and English comprehension and vocabulary. So the pool of students that are thinking about this exam is slightly different. But you're right that lots of parents say, what are the job opportunities? What are the placements that we get? Irrespective of nationality, it doesn't, I
Right.
don't think it's only the Indians that are asking about this. Our fees are also a little bit higher than over here. They're more like a private institution rather than an IIT. And so that is the other thing. I think people are doing the calculation of, if I'm investing this much, what is going to be the period
ROI or
recovery and things like that.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
Or-
okay. Fine.
Yeah,
Like
so
a multiple of
exactly.
years.
Yeah, how is it going to go? So and but it's very early days for us. And not even a single batch has graduated at this point of time. So we have to tell them the stories about our alumni, our 60,000 alumni of IIT Madras. What are they up to, right? And one of the lines that we keep stating over here, that lots of our students are aspiring to be employers rather than go into some line job in some company, and that they're, after an undergrad, they're qualifying themselves with additional degrees and so on. So we have to, which it's very complicated to explain, because you can't write down and give them, it's all right, your child, your ward will get a job of X dollars per year at the end of it. So yeah, for me, it bothers me a lot when they ask this question, because, especially an undergrad education cannot just be seen as a conduit to a job. Forget a career, not even a job, right? There's so much, what our value add is, of course, that academic education part of it, concepts, problem solving techniques, but also form the young person, the 17-year-old, 18-year-old that comes to us, forms their philosophy for their own life, how they are going to live it, what they're going to do with it, what job, career, aspirational path they're going to go down, etc., which are not easy to convey, I think. Because I think when you say too much of these things, it immediately creates a distance between a parent or a student and me as a professor. And I don't want to push that also.
Fair enough. It's not your undergrad education is not just a resume building exercise.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
At least, and that's not the way the program is structured also. So we have, we put together curricula so carefully. Like there are the foundational aspects. And when you do the foundational science math, it is to harmonize across wherever you're coming from, either in terms of your school education or in terms of mindset of how you're approaching problems, etc. And then on top of it, we build the domain specific knowledge. And then you know that in IIT Madras, you have the freedom, you have those free electives so that you can go in the direction that's unique but suitable for you, for your aspiration. Figuring that out is the biggest deal, no? It's not about, you can do the courses. We'll tell you, do these 50 courses and you're done with 5 semesters or whatever, 6 semesters.
Actually, today is the world is such a unique place. If a student is truly motivated, they can just learn everything online.
Yeah.
They can just go to one of these MOOCs and learn everything. But that's not college, right?
No, and that's not the experience of, certainly not the IIT experience, right? It's and these networks, even for you as a student, I think one of the most valuable things was how you talk to the peer group over here, students and faculty and so on, and how that shaped your thinking.
Yeah.
And I think these are all not easy to quantify and
Exactly. Ma'am, you mentioned while talking about this about applications and a 5-part test, or I didn't understand that, but can you run us through how the admission system works?
Yeah, very happy to. First of all, for our undergraduate program, the eligibility is, of course, CBSE 12th, ICSE, or IB Diploma 2, or the 12th standard equivalents across the world. In Tanzania, it's called NECTA board. And whatever the board is, we're very open to that. Everybody in their final year of their 12-year high school is eligible to apply to us. Applications are online, and you just need to submit your 10th or 10th equivalent mark sheet. And if you're in 12th at this point of time, submit the 11th, and then whatever you can say about the 12th. And we, after the online applications are completed, we run a screening test. And the screening test is physical. We have 40 centers across the world where we are running this screening test simultaneously. So this year we are going to do it in two. We're going to give 2 slots because so that we can handle the volumes and the timelines of different school boards also a little bit better. So if you're an applicant and you've completed the application form, you'll go to a center near you. 20 African cities also have centers, 20 Indian cities also have centers. We have a handful in the Middle East also. So you'll write the test, which is 3 hours long, lot of maths, little bit of physics and chemistry, little bit of mental ability questions, and a little bit of English comprehension vocabulary. So you'll write that test. We call it a screening test, IITM Zanzibar screening test, put together by IITM faculty every year. And after that, we interview all the students. We interview a lot of students because we want to.
Yeah.
That's the loveliest part of what I'm doing, actually, being able to talk to all these students. So we sit online interviews, hardly 10-15 minutes each, talk to them about their aspirations, why are they thinking about Zanzibar, what are their math skill at, and stuff like that. And then the
Nice.
list is declared.
Damn interesting. I have this question about whether there are already coaching centers for IIT Zanzibar test.
No,
Not yet. Um,
although we are running, it's not a coaching center, but I think if I break down what is the most difficult part of a test like this, is that you feel unconfident, right? That I can attempt this and I can do okay in this test.
yeah, there's a lot of self-doubt.
Yeah, and especially for a set of for a population that doesn't do as many tests as we Indians do, that can be a big problem. And many times when we interact with school in Africa, with school counselors, school teachers, heads of schools, etc., they say, what is this test about? It's the first time our students are finding something like this. Can you help? So we have some students current IITM students help out a little bit online. And even just last week, we put out applications to see if any students here will engage online and just sort of support our current year applicants in preparing for the test a little. You should prepare a little bit.
Yeah.
Don't come completely unprepared.
Yeah.
At least build up some of your confidence before you come. So we are doing that. But it's not like the code.
Not like India. Oh man, it's a industry now. I'm curious to know how is IITM Zanzibar governed? I'm asking this because IITs are part of the IIT Act, and there's a structure that the Act puts in place. There's a board of governors. There are appointees to it. There's a director and there's a senate and so on.
Yeah.
So does IIT Madras Zanzibar come under the Act, or how is it organized?
It's a very interesting question. And I'm really surprised, Amritash, that you know about this and you're asking me this. Pleasure to answer it, however. So, because it's an absolute first for the IITs to do something like this, so both of us, IIT Madras and IIT Delhi, we have our starting point has been for the offshore campus has been an MOU, which is a tripartite one.
IIT Delhi's campus in Abu
Abu
Dhabi.
Dhabi.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there's been a tripartite MOU for both of these. These are the only two offshore IIT campuses right now. A lot of other private institutions in India have offshore campuses, but we are the only two IITs. So the starting point was that MOU, which was so very recent. Now, in our IITM Zanzibar, our agreement with the Zanzibar government is that we are granting IIT Madras degrees, which means that academically, this is completely an IIT Madras driven activity, which means that what you say about curriculum and Senate and so on, it's the same IIT Madras Senate. So, this data science curriculum that I was describing to you before, put together by us here in Chennai, run through the Senate over here in Chennai a couple of years ago. For the process engineering one, the same route is going to happen. Ocean structures went to the IIT Madras end. So our curricula and also the student selection process are IITM Senate approved, which gives the academic autonomy. So there is nothing from the government of Zanzibar or local Zanzibari authorities on this matter.
Okay.
However, it is a cross-border institution because it's physically located over there, is governed by the local laws over there. So it's registered as a cross-border institution in Zanzibar. And your point about the board is so very good because IITM Zanzibar has its own governing council, which has oversight into the activities of the campus across the board. And that is composed of nominees from IIT Madras, which IIT Madras director and board have nominated members. It includes Professor Bhaskar Ramurthy, Liji Raghu is also on the board. So Devang Khakkar, who's the ex-IIT Bombay director, and so on. And then there is a matched set of academics and officials from Zanzibar who are on this board. So there's a group of 12 people that have the oversight into the activities. Financially, this campus is supported, of course, from student tuitions, but also the government of Zanzibar. And in terms of the books, etc., it stays over there in terms of the accounts, everything is in Zanzibar. But strong up to now, everything, a lot of activities are academically, it's completely from IIT Madras. But beyond that, right, beyond what is required, tons of support from this campus. There's a regular stream of faculty being deputed. At least 50% of any course in a semester. We are in the fourth semester of teaching. We've, I think, completed about 30 courses teaching. So even this semester, there's going to be a bunch of faculty from here that spend 3 months just on the teaching, apart from those like me that are on longer term
Deputation. So from an academic perspective, a lot of it is done here. and I mean thought of here
Yeah.
and implemented there.
Yeah.
From an administrative point of view, most of it is completely local with some help from here.
I
And
wouldn't
financial,
exactly put it like that. Academically, it's fully IIT Madras because that's how we can grant our degrees. Yeah. Administratively, it's a cooperation between
Understood.
local and us.
Professor, what is the vision for 5-10 years for the campus? And also, like in that vein, are there going to be more IIT campuses outside India?
So I'll sidestep your second question. And I'll take your first question. So, this, I think I've been building up to this answer through this really lovely conversation you and I have been having. It's IIT Madras. It happens to be sitting in Zanzibar on Zanzibari land and enjoying the chill island vibe and so on. But it's an IIT Madras campus. So aspirationally, this campus has the same goals as the strategic goals as the main campus, and which is not easy because this has become a really remarkable growth journey, especially in the past 10-15 years we've seen for IT. So there's a research park activity. The vision is to bring that kind of activity very quickly into Zanzibar and connect up the IITM Zanzibar campus also that way with technology development and entrepreneurship and impacting at scale, and solving not just Zanzibari or Tanzanian problems but global challenges that are out there or facing Africa. Africa has that youth bulge now, and it's 60% of
Yeah.
their population is young. I think more than a third of the world's under 25 population is going to be in Africa.
Yeah.
Which is an opportunity and a big challenge. And we sitting over there as a top technological institute of the DNA of IIT Madras have to address that, harness that opportunity and also meet the challenges. That is definitely the vision. Of course, like the strong undergraduate and postgraduate education will continue because that is our foundational part component of this campus and all the IITs. So that will continue, but our vision is to look at it because we have the chance to do it in 2024 and beyond, to look at it interdisciplinary in an interdisciplinary way. And like I was saying before, cross-cutting AI, ML, data science, and so on into it. Keep this 50%, students' choice of courses and things like that inherently built into the curriculum itself. So, and overall, the student experience want to mirror both in terms of aspiration, in terms of depth of what they do, creativity, etc. with this. So, in the first month or so when we had a chance to talk a lot about this, we called that a small but mighty campus. And I think that is what we want to look at going forward as well.
Interesting.
And other aspect is, again, the strand that is being really pushed here in IIT Madras is about certificate programs and professional skilling kind of activity. Obviously, the need in Africa is humongous for this. So, to pull that also into and we've already done that. We've already in this year and a half done a ton of this kind of professional skilling certificate kind of programs over there. So, build out that vertical as well. So broadly, this is where we are.
Oh, nice. I just want to share that this is, first of all, it's extremely inspirational that everything is being built from scratch. We're getting to see it. We've heard stories of how many years back IIT Madras was a small campus and in a transit campus, and it took so many years to get here, and then doing the whole thing again in a short time with the same kind of vision. It's really inspirational.
So we were, in a sense, this campus, we had the support from Germany, right? You remember that in our initial year.
I was not born, so I don't remember it firsthand, but
No, right.
top stories.
No, right. Actually, no,
Yeah.
because 59 to, I think, early 70s is when.
So the last German professors would have left maybe in 75,
Yeah,
80.
something like that. No, not 80. It was in the early 70s. So, and I think that has been great for us, right? Our strength in engineering derives possibly from those early activities from the Germans in our
Yeah.
campus. So we have to do this. We have to go forward and do this. And in a region that
Huh.
I mean, the opportunity is just phenomenal. We can't deny that. So I think that's the idea.
You know, as you're saying it, I remember you were a student here, so you can give me the perspective. At the very least,
Yeah.
we inherited the workshop from Germans. And I remember my filing classes and fitting classes. And it's changed now. Workshop requirement is much less. But how was it when you were a student? I think you were a student in 94.
91 to 95.
Okay, so did you have a lot of workshop?
We had the metal work. Actually, I'm sorry to say I enjoyed it. I didn't do well, but it was fun, hands-on carpentry. You do some things. I wasn't good at it, but carpentry was fun. The metal working thing was, they were just a little bit harsh, I think, but as an activity, it was good. We had welding, we had foundry.
Yeah, I think
It was
fitting, carpentry, welding, foundry,
Yeah,
lathe.
lathes we had, but lathe we didn't get stuff. That was the most fun thing, right? We never got enough time on the lathe, I think, in my student days. So now in Zanzibar, we want to straight away start with, of course, lathes, small sort of hands-on activity shop, if you want to call it, about 3D printing and like, because that's, look at the
Let's switch gears. Professor, you have sorry for this question, but I have to ask you. You have a BTech in chemical engineering from IIT Madras, a master's in chemical engineering from UMass.
Rochester Masters.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
And then you were a faculty at IIT Bombay in chemical engineering, and then at IIT Madras in chemical engineering. And the question I want to ask you, sorry about this, but I get asked this question and I have to answer it. How is chemical engineering different from chemistry? And also, my least favorite question of all time, but we do get it, is chemical engineering safe for girls?
It's extremely safe for girls. I mean, it's a nice, especially in the degree like this. I mean, there's nothing is, there in the program that is skewed towards men in any way, and especially chemical engineering.
I don't know why people ask this.
No, it's so there is the biggest conference for chemical engineers across the world is this one thing that happens annually in the US. And even when I was a grad student in the US, I remember that it wouldn't be 50%. Women wouldn't be 50% represented. It would be lower, 20, 25, something like that. Maybe even less, if I was to be honest. But now, a few years ago, I went. It's exploded. There are plenty of women in chemical engineering now, and it's. I don't even think that needs to be a question anymore.
Yeah, so parents ask this for chemical engineering and ocean engineering. And I don't know why. I think their impression maybe stuck 20, 30 years back.
So even shop floors, right? In if you're looking aspirationally for a job on a shop floor, then maybe you should question what is the gender representation on a shop floor of a big chemical plant or a automotive plant, etc. But even there, the winds of change are there, especially in Chennai. If you see, there are plants that are. I think there is a couple of plants that are entirely women, right? And things like that. So I don't think we should worry so much about it. Now, what is chemical engineering is a good question. Definitely, we have our roots in industrial chemistry, but it's a very general, broad based engineering discipline. And it's not new, it has been there for maybe its name wasn't given as chemical engineering, but it's there from, prehistoric, you can say. Fire is it's a chemical reaction, as you know, making of all products, including anything you can touch. A chemical engineer has been involved on this making of this table, definitely the titanium for this MacBook that is there. So of course the oil and gas industry is essentially refining. Everything is chemical engineering processes for sure. Materials. old materials, new materials, all of this is chemical engineering. The pharmaceutical industry, anything biochemical, it also has a lot of chemical engineering principles that are over there. Energy, if you think about, is lot of chemical engineering, especially when you're looking at new vistas in energy, renewable energy, things like that. And my own area of carbon, recent area of carbon dioxide capture and so on, also very strong. It's a stronghold of chemical engineers, so to speak. Also, we are the oldest repositories of data. Chemical plants have fertilizer
Lots of
plant.
process data.
Yeah, we have ton of data. So analyzing data and all the entire field of data science and so on is also something that is very inherently, I think, a attractive one for a chemical engineer and vice versa also. So I think it's a inherently, I would say, interdisciplinary type of area. Principles cross-cut with lot of other engineering disciplines. Contributions wise, everything, everywhere you can.
If I were a student of chemical engineering, I would learn about process flows, energy. I'm just taking up from what
Okay.
you've said, energy, um, process flows, energy, fluid dynamics,
Yeah, fluid dynamics,
um,
definitely. Reactions,
energy, reactions.
lots of which is why I think people think it's a lot of chemistry, but a lot of
Oh,
chemical
because they think of it as reactions.
reactions, but also
But you're not
reactors.
reacting test tubes. It's an industrial process.
Exactly. It's like chemical design of any processes. Flows definitely, but reactors, making things, anything that you need to make is definitely a chemical engineering kind of process that's involved.
I started my career in a factory,
Yeah.
and obviously there were either mechanical engineers or chemical engineers
Yeah.
who are looking at the processes and the manufacturing that happens.
I think these days, those lines, those siloed type of looking at this discipline versus that discipline, those are going away. I mean, you can't tell much in terms of if you just trace their what they do in their
Yeah.
jobs and careers, not much difference. And if you can start off as a chemist, you can start off as a mechanical, electrical engineer, chemical engineer, but you have to come together and do.
Yeah, there are very few careers which are pure one field,
Yeah.
pure another field. Thank
Yeah,
you.
academia.
Sorry?
Academia में.
But even in academia, Professor Raghu, who we spoke about, his work has moved to AI
Yeah.
and so on. So, I mean,
Yeah, no, we're very, I think you'll find chemical engineers in lots of things. And we can be very versatile, and that's the program. I'm a big fan of chemical engineering, by the way, and I love how diverse and versatile it is from the get-go.
on that topic, can I ask you what are your research areas?
Sure. So I work in an area that's called chemical reaction engineering. Definitely a little bit of chemistry is involved. My dad was a chemistry professor.
Okay.
So I don't shy away from that so much. But I've worked on a technique called underground coal gasification for many years. I worked with combustion systems during my PhD and postdoc a lot. And I worked in soot and carbon black production as well. Many years also in automotive emissions and how to control them from IC engine type of deployments. In recent times, my group has been working in carbon dioxide capture and routes for ensuring that any process can be made more friendly from a carbon dioxide emission perspective.
As you're saying this, I'm just thinking because you mentioned when we started talking about chemical engineering, you spoke about how fire
Yeah.
is chemical engineering, or like a lot of it is. And you don't call it fire, you call it combustion, which is the same.
Yeah,
And a
exactly.
lot of what you described are just around combustion as a process.
Exactly. Even rocket fuel is essentially that. So we are there in that also.
Nice. You also take two very interesting courses. One is Play to Learn and one is on research skills. Would love to learn a little bit more on this.
So this Play to Learn, we started, my colleague, Mr. Karthik and I started because we felt that we were looking at ways to enrich engineering classrooms. So they can be so boring and we are losing our audience so quickly, and we know that games are a good way to capture their attention and interest, but we struggled with designing games across the board, right? Like, you said fluid mechanics, how to go into a fluid mechanics class and give a set of games that the faculty can use that will engage the students better. We said, how do we do this? We said, what is the power of the IIT experience? It's the students essentially. So we offered this course where students would elective course where students will come, and for a topic or a course of their choice, it could be something that they found interesting or something that they found boring. And they'd sit around and design games, card games, board games, or online, mobile type of games, etc., to enhance the classroom experience. So we generated so many awesome ideas during the years that we were offering small classes. It's a small sort of a niche elective, GN elective, so small classes, but it was really fun to do. And I only stopped because now I'm in Zanzibar and it's hard to manage that.
Very interesting idea. I guess, yeah, I think a lot of disciplines, not just engineering, right? Like even in other fields where it becomes too technical,
Yeah.
where it goes too deep, there is a sort of like a drop in attention
Yeah.
that the professors have to work with. Like they can't say that we won't go deep.
Yeah.
You can't avoid the
Correct.
so-called boring parts, and yet you have to keep your class engaged and move them.
Yeah, and case studies and discussion
Yeah.
type of activities that they can do, which are also very hard to do in engineering. In my own classes, I would do this thing called discussion forum online on an app that I've been using. And that was really the most fun thing, because okay, facts, I have to give them some facts, but I can quickly summarize the facts and give it to you, and you read it or you go through some video about it. But engaging with you, what does that fact mean? How do you sort of explore deeper with that fact into an application? That is the most interesting thing, but it's very hard to do across day after day. To do this day after day is, I think,
Yeah.
it's challenge.
Yeah. And the other course we were talking about was the research skills
Yeah.
course.
So this course, it's a small few, I think it's just 3 credits or so. We introduced that a few years ago because from the Office of Global Engagement, Professor Raghu and I introduced it. And this is mostly for international students in our international interdisciplinary master's program and the joint masters with Kathmandu University. So our joint masters students they spend the first year in Kathmandu and then they come over here. So we needed this to be a course that would be offered sometime in the second semester of their masters for either group of students, so that when they, because we didn't know what their training would be, but when they went into their MTech project, they would have some idea of how to do literature search, what are good sources, reliable sources of scientific information, and you just don't pick up some unverified information and things like that. How do you organize all the scientific literature so that you can, you can form you can bubble up a research problem statement out of it and develop a methodology for it. So there are some pre-skills for doing.
Have these ideas changed over the years with the invent of AI tools like ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity?
Yeah, it's become, I think, different, and it's helped us. We still have to do the hard work of sitting and reading a lot, screening through lots of scientific papers, etc. But I think it's expanded our ability to do this. Of course, you can trace it from the time when we had to physically go to the library, take bound volumes, and photocopy them,
Yeah.
to when you were getting those PDFs and online repositories, but you have to search them yourself, to now when you can I use Research Rabbit sometimes, and just it just expands out the search for you in a way that some parts of some mundane parts of your literature search are removed, and it's made more efficient. So definitely, it's not markedly changed how the activity operates, but we can be more efficient, which means we can do more. So they can read more papers and they can get more perspective.
And probably like the time frame has shrunk.
Yeah.
I remember someone on the podcast talking about, I was it Professor Ravindran? I can't remember. But he said that in his undergrad, he would have to write a mail, a physical mail to a professor to send a copy of his paper from there. And then you would have to wait for 2, 3 months to get a copy and then you would read it. So
When I graduated undergrad, we still didn't have, we just started getting electronic mail on the campus. So I think, yes, things have changed.
yeah, you graduated in 95.
Yes.
And things are so different, not just internet. I've read, you've said earlier that I think in your batch, 5 out of 45 students were women.
Yeah.
And today, of course, on campus, it's about 20% women. And when I was in campus 2008, my batch had about 10-11%.
Yeah.
At least my class had 10-11% women. So much has changed. I think because you've spoken about it so many times, I want to ask you, um, why should we care about gender ratio in general, and what can be done to improve the gender ratio on a place like IIT?
Sure. So I think good questions. First of all, it's 20% undergraduate population is a women. When we look at our research scholars, our numbers are much healthier, at least a little bit healthier. We are at 25-30% women, which means that out of the 3,000 PhD scholars you have on campus, you have 1,000 of them, a third of them being women, which is percentage wise not bad, but number wise that's phenomenal. So you have 1,000 women PhD scholars who are at the edge of the known and unknown, right? Because every PhD is exploring
Need something new.
new on their own, and I think they are there is a potential for these women to be really top. Of course, the men also, the 2,000 men also, but also these women to be top notch academics, absolutely successful researchers and so on. And I'm proud that our institute is cultivating this kind of including women into the equation in this way. Now, of course, we have to represent ourselves. We have to be represented better. We're 50% of the population. We belong to the same species. If you look at what is needed for success in academia, there is really no gendering that is, necessary of this. So all the skills, you have to be intellectually very sharp and so on. You have to be dedicated and disciplined. You have to be passionate about research. None of these is more, stronghold of men than women.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense that we are so underrepresented.
Also, adding to the fact that at a school level, performance of women now is
It's pretty very good.
higher than performance of men
Yeah, and
in terms of grades.
and outside IIT, if you go, even in engineering, even in mechanical engineering, right, we have good number of young women studying mechanical engineering in, at least in Tamil Nadu, in engineering colleges outside. So we need to, it's something to think about for sure for the IITs about, is there something that we are doing incorrectly, so to speak, that our
It
numbers.
came up in one of the earlier conversations that the coaching process is a little, because you have to leave home, you have to, I mean, not everyone, but a lot of the students leave home, go to a hostel, stay there for many years, away from home, and maybe that's something that's sort of exclusionary.
Yeah, no, there are many such barriers. Even it costs a lot, and parents have to sometime. We've talked about this before. Parents ask the question: "This investment, what is it going to come up?" So it's a complex problem, and we don't have to go crazy about it. I think, but bit by bit, we sort of create an environment that is welcoming, and they will come. Like has happened very quietly. Like you all never mention it in many of the interviews. For our research scholars, obviously, there's something we're doing right, that this is increasing. The percentage and numbers of women is increasing, and when they go out and become successful, the numbers of and percentages of of women faculty will naturally increase over course of that. So I think it's important. We should be conscious of it for sure.
In that same vein, and also, my daughter is in class 6 now. So, I mean, great for her that she's growing up in a world which is more inclusive. And grateful for the strides taken by IITs in that. In that same vein, you're the first woman director of any IIT campus. I mean, congratulations, it's an achievement. But also, like, it's a little bit of a national shame that it's taken so long. Um, can I ask you the question about the percentage of women in faculty positions?
Yeah. So again, that is small at this point of time. I think a couple of years ago, I was part of this Gati program that we did, Gender Advancement for Transforming Institutions, Government of India program. I was coordinating, and it was very nice. I really liked that program because the ask was to get all the data, like collect everything, data about everything that you're doing in the campus, and gender segregated in a gender segregated way. For example, faculty, when we say faculty recruitment, you have X number of applications in department Y, collect that. What percentage was women? Next level, they get to where they're interviewed, collect that number, what percentage is women, and so on and so forth. So that you study some trends of, first of all, is there a good percentage in step 1, which is receiving applications, and then going forward in the selection process and so on, is that consistently carrying forward. So they asked again apart after collecting this data was to reflect upon it as a community, as leadership, sit and reflect upon what does this data say to you. Do you see any need to change your policy? Obviously, the answer is a little bit yes. And what specific way do you think your policies need to be amended so that next time we do this analysis, there is what is improvement for you, what is a performance success metric for you, and when should we evaluate things like that. So very reflective, look inward. Don't worry about anybody else telling you should be this or that.
Yeah.
For example, you know that in certain disciplines, we're not even getting applications.
Yeah.
So pushing them to say, make sure that you have 50% women in your faculty makes no sense. So let them articulate. So there we saw, we got very rich data, very good, rich insights, very cooperative administration that looked at the data and the insights that we got, and the thought and have thought about and have been consistently thinking about policy shifts that we need to do. Yeah. We're at that time we were at 10-11% women faculty. We've already improved. And we know 3 or 4 things that if we do right, if we get these 3 or 4 things right, the slope will continue to sort of drive us upward.
Nice.
It won't happen overnight, and it shouldn't, because one thing is to get numbers, but the second thing is to include these different people, so to speak, into the growth journey and the strategic plan of the institution properly, so it's aspirational for them, it's aspirational for you as an institute to have them, and then go forward like.
Also, like, the question is, at the end of a long process, a person becomes a faculty member after they have become a postdoc, after they have done a PhD, after they have done a BTech, MTech. So it's a long journey, and you can't really improve this unless the whole pipeline improves.
Yeah.
I remember when I was working for a company, and we were talking about women engineers in the company. This is IT, which is actually good with women. We were at 23% or something, and so the idea that you have to first check where you are, and then you have to look at where you can go to realistically
Correct.
with meaningful interventions. I think we were trying to go to 30. So 23, 30 would have been a great jump for
Yeah.
where we were.
Great. Exactly.
I'm great. I'm very thankful to you that we could have this conversation. I want to reflect on the idea that in your academic and professional journey, you have gone through many reputed institutes. So IIT Madras, there's IIT Bombay, there's MIT in the middle. How are these places different, and how are they similar? Just written.
So for me, I think the academic experience, just the focus on being really strong and academically focused, is the same across these institutions that I have been in. But if I was to call out certain things, I'll start with maybe MIT. MIT, there is this corridor you walk down, and they have photos of all their Nobel laureates on either side, which is intimidating maybe the first few days, but inspiring after that. That, look, I am here in a place that has brought out this kind of depth of scientific talent, and somebody has found it acceptable to include me or include me in this story as well in some small way. So that was a little bit different. That's not a feeling that at least at that level, not immediately coming up in the other places like University of Rochester, very strong in the chemical engineering PhD master's program that I was in, and there are some stalwarts over there, but the level was one notch higher in MIT. Now, if I look at in terms of the energy of the young people, right? Energy of the young people, I love the IIT Bombay and IIT Madras experience a lot more than these other institutions, including MIT, that are abroad. So there is a certain keenness, I think, to the way young people are. Maybe the hunger is different here, at least today, in the IITs than in the other places. So for me, that has been really good and enjoyable. And IIT Bombay, I remember, I was a young assistant professor, and you go into the class, there's 120 students, and they're not going to give you a break, right? They are smart, they know they're smart, they will do their best to try and trip you up. It's almost like, of course, not the backbenchers who are just sort of relaxing, but those in the front, the entire sole goal and focus is how can it trip her up, somehow ask something, at the very least make sure that there's nothing further useful comes out of this class and stuff like, which was it was a good challenge to have, right? So I really enjoyed it, and the teaching experience, to turn it back at them and say, why don't we do XYZ and things like that. So the undergrad teaching experience at IIT Bombay versus IIT Madras has been similar. Very fun, both extremely fun for the most part. But I have to say that as an alumnus of IIT Madras, my husband's also an alumnus of IIT Madras. And I've now been, after coming back here, it's been what, 15 years over here. And this big opportunity to do this offshore, who thought? I mean, we'll have an offshore campus in Africa, and IIT Madras will jump and say, let's do this. And they will give me the responsibility for this. And so looking at all of this place is just beyond doubt fantastic, in terms of how we are setting aspirations, changing the paradigm entirely of what a higher education institution can do and be, and how it, what is its place in the country, I was saying, but now the world itself. So I think this place is just remarkable.
Amazing. Thank you. And of course, your students at IIT Madras Zanzibar are very lucky for you to have gone through this journey and now benefit from your insights.
Oh,
Amazing.
they are amazing. They are, there's that Monday morning feeling, right? Like if you wake up on Monday morning,
I feel like going to work. Yeah.
yeah, like this Monday morning, I was happy waking up and coming, because I could meet you. But that feeling in Zanzibar is a big part because of the students. This is remarkable.
Raring
This is
to
pioneers, right? Because, they've put their faith in something like something that didn't even exist before they took their first steps in.
Amazing. I'm taking so much of your time. Last two questions, I promise. One is that you're a runner. And everybody I spoke to, I said, I'm meeting Professor Preeti. They said that she's a runner. You should talk about it. Very interesting. How did you get into it? And how does it help you in your professional career?
So running, I'm passionate about lots of things, and running is definitely one of them. I've been running for a long time. I think definitely remember since the age of 10. in some way, shape, or form, being a runner. I've always been quite tiny, so through school, I was sprinting, and it worked, and it was a really fun thing. I wouldn't run anything more than 200 meters. Even 200 meters, I thought was long in those days. But subsequently, when I was a student here, I was running a lot, but I was also playing basketball. I make a joke sometimes saying I didn't know I wouldn't grow any taller than this, and that's why I got into basketball. But it's not entirely true because my family is fairly vertically challenged. So it was obvious as a budding scientist that it wasn't going to be remarkably different for me. But in grad school, I started running a little bit longer,
Okay.
like 5K or so. And it was only after childbirths that I really got into half marathons and marathons. And, I was also settling in as an independent researcher around the same time. And there is a reflectiveness to a long run that I think is great for sort of centering you and, also for definitely for a research mindset. But in my current role, for the challenges of an administrative position like this, that nobody can give a rule book for, so
Is it like a meditative experience? Is it like
yeah, it definitely is. It's definitely it's something I enjoy it, and you're putting yourself through something. Then when your body meets the challenge, it definitely feels good. Um, it's also given me the chance to travel. Now it's a little hard, but I used to travel for races. Go to Hyderabad, go to Mumbai for the Mumbai Marathon. I've been to, I think, Coimbatore and one place here, Chennai Trail Marathon. It was called. It's about a couple of hours from Chennai. Such a beautiful place, completely unexplored. It's like Grand Canyon is no patch on this place, and it's literally 2 hours drive from Chennai. Nobody knows about it. I've run the Chicago and the London marathons, and those were also really great traveling experiences as well.
nice? Oof, I think I'm too old to get into it, but maybe someday I'll try.
No, it doesn't have to be in any big way. And each of us has a different thing, I think.
Ma'am, the maximum running I do is with my daughter from our door to the place where her bus picks her up every day for
Yeah,
school.
that
Yeah.
school bus drop is definitely
Yeah.
important.
Okay, last question. I'm looking at your laptop and it has a lot of stickers, and I'm very curious. Can you take us through this?
So, okay, first of all, every time I get a new laptop, I try to make sure I have some stickers that are me on it. This time I taught one part of a chemistry for data scientists course in Zanzibar. So I was thinking a lot about chemistry the whole time. So it turned out coincidentally that my stickers pile had a lot of chemistry stuff. So there is Schrodinger's cat
Okay.
here, and this is just a generic chemistry sticker. This is a mole, concept of a mole, and also the animal mole. Uh, and I like a lot of jokes. This one says, I think you're overreacting, which is like a very,
Chemical engineering joke.
yeah, and it's a geeky kind of joke. So it's stuff like that. It's whatever I buy a pile from
Nice.
whatever, and I put
Done.
it over there. I think it
Is there a
makes
go?
me
Is that a
go
lab
big.
coat?
Yeah, it says go big or go home. That's what it says, which I don't know if I'm entirely on board with that, but I don't know if it was a stick.
Nice. So
Oxygen and magnesium, this because I taught a lot about the periodic table, so it was also
and also when
done. Also
nice. Thank you so much, Professor. I guess it's been more than an hour now, so very grateful that you gave us the time. Yeah, please like, share, subscribe, drop a comment. Any parting words, ma'am?
It has been a pleasure talking to you. I genuinely didn't notice the time go by. For me, I think what is very remarkable is all of you all as IIT Madras students, how you find a path that is your own, and you're brave and you take it. So I'm very proud of you for what you do, and grateful that you thought of me. And I hope the message for younger IITians is definitely to follow in paths like yours. Find that and go after it.